Hi everyone, welcome back to Yasmin's Q&A. Today, or a few days ago, I had a conversation with my friend Sharmel. So in this part one of our conversation, we discussed being a novelty person or a user-friendly person and what it means. We kind of touch on Black Lives Matter, and for that reason, I just want to remind everybody, by no means does it mean that we are against or for or anything political. It's just us sharing what it means to us as people of color and how we view it. So please keep all negative comments and any political statements to yourself. This is not what my channel is about. It is about learning from each other and our stories and figuring out how we can bridge this gap. We also discuss how biracial children could have different journeys of having parents on both sides and being in the middle. So I hope you guys enjoy the video, and here's part one with Sharmel. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Yasmin's Q&A, and like I promised, I have my buddy Sharmel. And hi Sharmel. I don't know what she wants to talk about, but I'll let her introduce you. And once again, another one of my buddies from my childhood. And my channel is not politic. This is about everybody's experiences and how they view things and things that they have lived through and are doing. So remember to be kind in your comments. If you have anything you want to respond to, be my guest. But anything derogatory, negative, or just plain rude, I will delete. So other than that, hi Sharmel. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So, prior to Jasmine introducing me, we were talking about, well, I shared what I call, so user-friendly, being a user-friendly Black person, okay? That means that people that are not Black, particularly white people, they're polite to me. They smile at me. They want to talk to me. They want to be around me. They don't see me as one of those Black people. I'm not one of those,
I call it a novelty person.
I'm not so you call it novelty, I call it user friendly. I say user friendly, meaning that the attitude that they associate with Black women, like I can give it, but I usually they don't get that from me. I can, but I use it when necessary. And even then, there's that's that Black women have these attitudes, and that there's this chip on our shoulder, and whatever. So we're talking about being user friendly. My husband, I consider him user friendly. He is a big Black dude, but people want to talk to him and be around him, and he's friendly. And so I had said all of this to say we were getting into why I no longer work at my place of work. I was there for 11 years. I'm a massage therapist, and one of the reasons, well, the kind of straw that broke the camel's back kind of situation, is that while the people I subcontracted, so the people that own the place I was working at, are like, I have so much love for them. Like, I'm not gonna, even after what was posted, like, I have so much love for them. I knew they had different political views, but we never talked about politics in the office. That's just not something that we did, and it was never necessary because my relationship with them had nothing to do with what their beliefs are in terms of politics, and vice versa, I'm assuming. So with the current social climate, and with all of the like Black Lives Matter, and police reform and all of that, I'm not friends with either of the two owners of the place I was working at on social media, but some of my other coworkers whom I'm friends with are friends with them. And I had seen a post, and this is after I'd seen other little things that the husband that owns the place had posted or commented on. So I saw some other things that I was kind of like, okay, he's being. It's one thing to have to believe something, to have a certain view, but it's another thing to make a mockery. And so he ended up posting a classic car because he used to do he used to do restore vehicles like classic cars, like hot rods and stuff. And he
Was
posted a
he a
picture.
Dukes of Hazzard fan?
Probably. He's really into like rockabilly. Like they're really into like rockabilly,
Yeah.
So he posted a picture of his classic car, beautiful car, and he puts on it in big white bold words, "Black cars matter." And I was more, again, that being user friendly. I never asked to be user friendly. It's just
Okay.
who I am. And part of me was like, well, I'm gonna let that. Part of me wanted to let it go, and then there's other part of me that's like, no, but that's not this. At this point, it's not about what you believe or you don't believe. It's about respect at this point, and that was totally disrespectful and out of line. It's one thing if they don't believe that Black Lives Matter, which is a problem in itself. But I understand that a lot of people have they don't understand that Black Lives Matter does not mean that only Black Lives matter. It means that all lives cannot matter until Black Lives matter as well. So that's
You
the
know,
big.
I had to check myself on that one though. So at first, when it all started, I remember having a really adverse reaction to the saying myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't really hit me until I got a phone call from my family saying that my dad was I'm not even going to say victim because he's not. He's a survivor of a hate crime in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
They had three gentlemen. Now, my dad is the older gentleman. He still thinks he's young. I know my aunties are going to call me about this. It's okay, aunties, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when it hit me that, oh, okay, so yeah, anyone who is really triggered by this isn't understanding the background of it. Like at first, I'm like, yes, they matter. Of course they matter. But why do we have to say it?
But
Because
but
once
they matter
again,
to you. They
right,
matter to you.
but I always felt like I'm in the middle. So that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
going to pertain to me. So my defense went up and I'm like, what, my life doesn't matter? But yes,
Right.
in reality, no, it's just bringing up the fact that my life isn't in danger every time I walk out this door. I can breathe just fine. I'm not worried that somebody's going to roll up on me for no reason, like my father, though. And one of my experiences actually was in when we were living in Gresham, like, in Oregon, we lived in a house in Gresham,
Mm-hmm.
and I was pregnant with my son, with my youngest, and me and my oldest and my father were going out to one of the malls out there,
Mm-hmm.
and we took the Max and we went shopping at Target. We're carrying these
Mm-hmm.
things. I'm all excited because, my dad's visiting. He's a truck
Yeah.
driver, so it's not often that he can visit. He comes through loads. This is
Right.
the same man who was an MP, right? Served our country. Same
Right.
man who brings you toilet paper during a pandemic because he's a truck driver.
Right.
So we're sitting there and going to the Mac stop from this Target, and all of a sudden there's this group of people, yes, white people, and they
Mm-hmm.
were saying all sorts of obnoxious things. Now, my dad, it can be as dark as the shirt, especially when he's coming from Mississippi and he's been out in the sun.
Right.
Um, and I didn't realize that at that time because, yes, people don't react to me the same way they react to my father.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying some stuff. Mind you, my oldest at the time was like 4 or 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pregnant, like very pregnant,
Right.
and I'm walking next to my dad, and they started saying some pretty nasty stuff to him. And to the point where I watched his face, and he's calm, like you can tell, he's now changing mode. Self, man, I am so impressed because I would have lost my crap. Now that
Right.
I'm like a parent and an adult, like I was young then, but
Right.
seeing it from now, no, totally calm, gets on that Max, grabs my child, sits her next to him, has his arm around her, and he's physically getting ready to defend us with his life.
Right.
That's when it hit me. Black Lives Matter. And the word isn't there to say any other life doesn't, but it was very clear to me since that incident that it's not appreciated like everybody else's life. Like my
Um,
youngest, my mother, my German mother will be just fine. My husband is just fine. My youngest will be just fine. They don't have to
um,
worry like my father and my brothers, my other cousins. So I get the defense part, and it's taken me a long time to think about why I'm defensive. And it's really a lot of biases that we're taught,
yeah, I wouldn't even say that
kind of an ego
you're
thing.
like that. Even you and your daughter, in particular, because your skin is a little bit darker than your son and your husband, per se. Like, let's say, I wouldn't say that. So, do you ever wonder if, because you said novelty, right? That's the
Yes.
word you use, novelty. Um, that because you've always been looked at as kind of a novelty person of color, that do you ever think that when there have been racist things towards you, if somebody didn't flat out call you the N-word, that maybe you had been discriminated against and you didn't even realize it because it's out of your concept of
No. So I have just realized that being able to speak German, fluent German, has saved my life many times.
right,
I have run into skinheads in Oregon, and
right,
just the fact that I can switch languages has saved me. I'm in
right,
no denial, but
right.
I'm realizing that my problems at school had a lot to do with,
But you wouldn't have known it if you didn't know it.
right.
I
And I
I
learned this in college. Isn't that
I didn't
crazy?
I just asked because I have a friend that is Mexican and we were all just talking. There's three of them, really good friends. We always get together. We always have like the deepest of conversations from every extreme to the other. And
Those kind of
we
friends.
were, huh?
I love those kind of friends.
Yeah. So we were talking, and the three of them are Mexican, and then of course me being black. Um, one of them in particular said she doesn't recall ever experiencing any type of discrimination, and and that made me think, and I go, wow, huh? Maybe she never has, but maybe she never realized that somebody was doing something because of her color.
I
And I
realized
know
that
that,
with my daughter. I had
yeah,
to be a parent to figure that out.
right. It's I have a niece, my sister's 8 year old. It always makes you just kind of wonder because she's in a, like, is it her character? Which I think she's a good kid, you know what I mean? But she's in a classroom full of kids and she doesn't have any friends in there. Like nobody wants to play with her. Like, but she is in a school where she is one of very few black kids. I think there's all of three black kids in her school.
We went through that when we first moved here. My daughter used to come home crying from play dates, and yeah, it
Right,
happens.
right. Um, so we go, is it Nyella? We try not to think that it's because of her skin color, you know what I mean? Or the other kids are getting favoritism because they're not black, like amongst other kids, that is. Um, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe she's just too bossy, or maybe she, I don't know. Although, because you don't want to, like, I think that people sometimes assume that black people are walking around wanting for somebody to be like to assume that somebody's being racist. That's the opposite.
Right.
We don't
Well,
want to think that. A lot of us don't want to think that. Like, not saying that there aren't a handful of people that are just on defense all the time,
right.
but there are a lot of us that you don't want to automatically assume that's why. Like, you think of every rational reason why that somebody could have possibly reacted a certain way, or without saying the N-word or flat out calling you out or like letting you know that that's why they were being a certain way towards you. But you want to assume the best.
Right.
You don't, your brain doesn't. So then you're sitting there going, well, one, upset that you put that much thought into it and gave it that much time, but also like trying to find other reasons or excuses of why that might have happened. So I don't know, but it so when it was a Black Lives Matter in particular, because somebody made a post about this, and it was all lives. It was like a older gentleman, older black gentleman. He was wanting to say, I don't. Yeah, it's not all just Black lives that matter. It's all lives matter. He's talking about his Hispanic neighbors and things like that, and how their lives matter. And yes, they all do. Like, all lives matter, like, no lie. What I noticed though, people aren't offended. They're offended by the word black. They're offended by the word black. That's too specific. That is way too specific. And I tell you this, because when you say all lives matter, they don't have to picture people that don't look like them when they think of the lives that matter. That's why when you say black lives, black is specific. I have to think about black lives mattering. But if you say all lives, I can think of the little kid, next door with the freckles, or I can think of, they can picture who they want to picture. And unfortunately for a lot of us, we only picture what we know. You know what I mean? We only picture what we know. Like, or there are unfortunately still a lot of people that just have not been around really any people of color, black people at that.
Well, I will post the second part of my last video with our friend Hazel, and I had mentioned that, yeah, growing up, we grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, and there's 10 black people that went to our high school.
Mm-hmm.
I counted
Right.
them. We still know them
Right.
all by name, which we're
Right.
not naming. But so
you knew when somebody was missing at the lunch table or in the
we sure did.
Like,
we sure did, and we asked
why
questions.
isn't so and so not in school today?
What happened to them? They still good? They still good, right? Everybody good?
Right.
So speaking of that, though, so what are some of your experiences? Like, did you feel it growing up? Because our friend didn't seem to feel it as much. I felt it here and there, but I didn't feel it more until an adult, and I figured out, like you said, do you not feel it because you don't understand it's happening to you? I feel like I didn't understand it was happening to me until my late teens, and then as a young adult and as a mother.
I knew it was always a thing. I noticed it with my friends when I was little. Like, if I would want to go play with them, I am thinking of two friends in particular where it was okay for the one girl to go and play, but it was like always a question of whether or not I could. And I happened to be the only black one in that
Group.
that group. And even then, I mean, okay, so this is something that kind of dawned on me recently as an adult. Like, really recent. I'm talking like the last probably 2 months. I realized that some of even my behavior when I was younger, how do I explain this? I realized that maybe I took on a certain persona when I was younger because it was expected of me. Because I was black, this is how, so I let what was seemingly expected of me, like that's what kind of got me accepted, so to speak. I let that kind of be who I am when that wasn't really who I am. I think it even kind of like stuck a little bit where I really thought that's who I was because it was kind of expected. It was like if you were black, you had to be funny. You had to be funny. You had to be, but yeah, so it's like there was a certain persona that you take on. Like, you had to, like, if you were going to be accepted as a black kid, you had to be funny. You had to be in like athletics. You had to be like loud. Like, that was expected almost. Like, and maybe it was trial and error. I imagine maybe I wasn't, I didn't start out that way, but it was like, oh, okay, well, when I'm funny, people like me when I'm funny. When I'm tap dancing, people like me when I tap dance for them. And I really think that even now, being user friendly or a novelty, I think that that still plays a big role. Like, people expect that, but as soon as you are, not to say that we're fake, but as soon as you're real with them, or life happens, or things, um the social climate, like all the racial stuff happening right now, as soon as that kicks in and people realize, oh, she's black, then that's when it's like, I don't know, like, it gets a little uncomfortable. Not for me, but for them, for sure. So I don't know if that was if you had that epiphany at all. I had that epiphany for myself, but it was an
I've
expectation.
had that epiphany a long time ago because I clearly have to deal with my German half of the family too.
Mm-hmm.
And so when this all started happening and people ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, dude, this is my life. Like, welcome to my world. I'm comfortable. This
Right.
chaos, this is normal to me. What a lot of people probably don't know, and this about me, was that I spent a lot of time in domestic violence shelters in Oregon and homeless shelters with my mom. So this craziness, welcome to every shelter you've ever going to visit. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's going to happen. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know who you're dealing with, and you got to learn to read people.
Yep.
And like I said before, I felt it. I felt it on both sides, though.
Mm-hmm.
I've always felt it on both sides.
Oh yeah, and
I
and that's it.
I
When you're
could never
biracial,
voice
it
it.
puts you in a different position. It puts you in a different position. And I just know this from some of my other. Is that what you're referring to? Being
Mm-hmm.
biracial? A couple of people that are biracial, and even my own family. A lot of my family's biracial. I have other friends who, like, in their cases, their white mothers didn't really get it. They didn't get it. They didn't understand that they were being discriminated against, and they didn't know how to handle those situations. They also didn't realize that just because they had biracial children, that didn't mean that they didn't have racial issues themselves.
Oh yeah, I've been the butt of jokes. I've been used as a prop to let other people know that they're not racist, which is a
Yeah.
racist thing in itself. Like, why would you say that and then
Right.
bring me somewhere to show me off and say that you're not racist?
Right. Because
Yes,
somebody
some of
made
the most racist things actually came from my own.
right, right. So somebody put it best. Slave owners had biracial children all the time. That did not mean that they weren't racist. And not saying that any of the moms involved are racist, but they didn't
They have
realize
biases.
they
Biases.
have biases, and they didn't realize um kind of where they went wrong. And that is the conditioning. That was the way they were raised, but they also have to be open to the idea that, yeah, you might have some biases,
Well, in my case, European culture is a little different as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So even CDs that were sent to my children that are German have still a song called 10 Little Hens. And it was number 10 on the CD. And I remember like going, am I hearing this right? And I remember saying to my oldest all the time, oh, we're skipping this number. But it's
Right.
so nonchalant because a lot of them don't understand or haven't learned the history of the United States because, Europe has their own dark history and their own
Mm-hmm.
racial biases. And it happens that we tend to be American over there
Right.
more so than Black American.
Right.
Like you have other cultures that they discriminate against. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And this is, in the 2000s, the late 2000s, that the CD
Right.
still has 10 little ends.
That's crazy. Oh my goodness.
Hey everyone, so thanks for tuning in to part one with Sharmel. I think she's amazing and brought up some wonderful insight and points that I didn't even think about until we were having this conversation. So with that said, feel free to comment and like and share and give me feedback. If you are new and don't know this, there's also a Facebook page. I'll have the link in the comments. It's Yasmin's Q&A on Facebook, where I will be posting random questions throughout the week and kind of continuing the conversation. So thanks for tuning in to Yasmin's Q&A.